They will come here in Houston. Oh, yeah. I mean, we just saw droves of boats and rescues. I mean, how does it to see the people on standby in case you guys...
about how other people, it's caring for people. It's all I got to do is if I can help, I'll help. Yeah. I mean, I'd do the same thing if I wasn't in this situation. I'd be out there. So, I got 4 kayaks. I mean, I can go get people.
I mean, we have boats going right behind us. A very small amount of the boats that are in here in the Inverness Forest neighborhood in case, something was to happen and the help was needed.
My number one priority is here now. I have to look after my, my area here. So I can't go out. I'm stuck here generally. So I'm here.
You're not leaving until everybody's safe.
Right.
We're talking about the people, and if you look at that truck right here, I'm going to actually bring in Commissioner Jack Cagle with me here. That truck right there, he's been talking to us. It's normally a dirt truck. You're telling us, Jack, today it's people movers.
Today it's a people mover. Hopefully next week we'll be back to helping us fix our roads, our bridges, fixing our potholes, keeping our parks clean. But today it's a people mover. And for the last few days, I have to pay a lot of compliments to the downtown office by keeping us informed and knowing where to go. And whenever there's a crisis, we will try to get there so that we can get folks out. Now, these are not deep water vehicles like you hear in other spots. These can only go a certain depth, but they can get people, we can haul them out. And so next week, dump truck. Today, people mover.
I mean, look at this. Boats are just coming in and coming into this neighborhood.
This is one of the beautiful stories of living here, and that is that whenever there's an incident that's reported to where there's a need, we have folks that are just coming out of the network. And one of the things that we have found is that whenever there's been a crisis and the cavalry, the people movers, are coming to come and help, many times by the time we arrive, other folks have gotten there because they've heard of the reports, they've listened to Judge Emmett on the radio or Jeff Linder, and they've been able to get there before we're able to get there, and that crisis has been solved, and that's a beautiful story. Now today, the scare that we had involved the problem with this neighborhood actually was under a voluntary evacuation several days ago. And we came through and we asked everyone to voluntarily evacuate. Many people did not. And then a day and a half ago, it went to a mandatory evacuation because we were concerned about the height and the rise of the creek. And because the creek was rising, there was a concern that it would spill over and come into this neighborhood. And because there was a mandatory evacuation in place, and we knew this was a high-risk place, when this morning we got word that there was seepage, water, and a cavitation, which means a hole, we did not wait to find out what it was, but we launched. And I got a lot of compliments to the folks that are saying, okay, here's a potential crisis. The sheriff's office, constables, my parks guys,
still behind you here, just coming in.
They all launched, and in a matter of from there's a problem to being here was a matter of about 30 minutes and us to getting in and trying to clear the neighborhood. The different members of the neighbors here say there's anywhere from 300 to 400 people that actually were in the zone of danger that we were able to move out had this been a bad event. I want to compliment flood control, and I want to compliment the geniuses and the scientists that are here and the engineer that is the local engineer, because in doing their investigation, they tell us that this is probably going to be okay. They didn't say remove the mandatory evacuation. We're still underneath an evacuation notice, and there are a number of reasons why. One of which is that the levee, even though the water is dropping, is still something that you have to treat very, very gingerly. And as I was sharing with one of your colleagues earlier, I'm not a chef, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a scientist, so this is highly imprecise, but it's like a souffle. When you bake a souffle, if you treat it gingerly and right, it makes a marvelous dish and everything works well. But if you rush it or you bump it, then it can collapse. And that's the concern that we have here is we're going to be bringing in by helicopter sand to fill the hole.
So there are going to be helicopters coming in here?
There are going to be helicopters coming in, bringing in sand to fill the hole. We've got other engineers and folks at work. We have to be very ginger. We can't bring heavy equipment onto the top of the dam, the souffle as it were, because that would disturb it. So we're bringing in by helicopter sand to fill the cavitation, to use the proper technical language, And that operation is underway. They've cleared the parking lot over here to have a place for the helicopters to land and to stage from. And so we should have that operation going on later on. But for now, we are still under mandatory evacuation, but we are all breathing a lot easier.
And we can tell too, because where we're standing here is at 110 feet elevation. I'm told we're at the highest part in this subdivision. That's why you see all these cars aligned on the road, because people who are in those lower parts have moved their vehicles up.
And this is an important thing for some of the folks when we were trying to ask them to leave. They all are very, very aware of where the creek rises if the levee was topped. And that's one surface. But there's a difference between a level to be if the creek is topped, which is regular flood, and what we were looking at this morning, because what we were looking at this morning was a potential dam failure, which might have a surge. And so a lot of folks were saying, hey, we don't need to leave because we know that we're topographically above the line, and we need to make sure that if they watch your program here, that if our first responders are coming in and asking you to leave, they do need to leave, because we don't want to have a Katrina effect when the levees fell. It wasn't just the water level, it was that surge that we needed to protect folks from.
And even though the sun is out and people may think they're out of, harm's way, we see a lot of people that aren't in trucks that are just kind of coming out here to take a look at the levee, and that's not a smart thing to do right now.
No, we don't need visitors to come look at the levee. We don't want the levee to be disturbed. We don't want any damage to occur to it. Don't mess with the souffle. Leave it be. We have highly skilled, talented folks, flood control, local engineers who are all doing their jobs. They're doing an extraordinarily good job. The engineer for this neighborhood actually was staying in the hole up until the time that we came here, which meant that he was putting himself right there, and he was saying that he feels that things are going to be okay. And so, but just because they're probably going to be fine does not mean that to put yourself in harm's way. And it would have really been nice that we did not have to come in here and have these 300, 400, depending upon the different persons that you talk to, folks, that we had to rush out of here under such a heart kind of pounding moment. Because we can't afford, because their lives are at stake, to wait and have the testing done and have all that kind of stuff. I mean, I grew up with the little story of the dike and the boy with his finger in the spring. And so when you hear about water in a hole, that's time to move, and then let folks later on tell you it's okay.
Well, and you see everybody's kind of monitoring the situation here, again, under a mandatory evacuation in the Inverness Forest Subdivision. We have seen the boats, we have seen the trucks in case that the need is there, and they are needed. So we're just kind of watching the situation here. I'm told that the water is half a mile away or so.
That'd be about right.
Half a mile away or so from where we're standing. So we're out of harm's way too. But that's kind of the situation now, guys, in the Inverness Forest Subdivision in North Harris County. We'll be tracking it for you. But for now, we'll just head it back to you guys in the studio.